Have you ever noticed a very strange phenomenon? In this world, there are many unreliable people, but the most unreliable group is often called experts. There is a classic interview in China. A so-called economics expert was asked a very normal question on a TV program. What advice do you have for low-income people in cities? You might expect him to talk about jobs, education, or social welfare. No. His answer was, low-income people can rent out their idle houses to increase their income. When I heard this, I was genuinely stunned. Not because the advice was brilliant, but because it was so absurdly real. Chinese netizens often use this kind of statement to mock these out-of-touch experts. Think carefully about the logic behind this statement. If you are a low-income person, then first of all, you need to have an idle house. In other words, in this expert's worldview, poor people are not poor because they lack money, but because they have too many houses and don't use them well. This instantly reminded me of another classic moment. Wanda Group founder, Wang Jianlin, once said in an interview, "For young people, starting a business is simple. First, set a small goal like earning 100 million. Put these two statements together, and they become a pair of surreal masterpieces of modern realism. Poor people can get rich by collecting rent. Young people can start from earning 100 million. They both sound reasonable, but there is only one problem. They are completely meaningless to ordinary people. There are many more similar suggestions. Farmers want to increase income? Simple, invest a few million in stocks and live off dividends. College students want to start a business? Even easier, ask your parents for tens of millions and wait for IPO. Workers want to turn their lives around? Buy luxury bags worth millions and resell them later at a higher price. The problem with these statements is not that they are logically wrong, but that they assume a premise that does not exist at all. That premise is, everyone is already rich. You just don't know how to use it. This is exactly like a famous story from ancient China. During the Western Jin dynasty, Emperor Jin Hui once said, upon hearing that people had no food, "Why don't they eat meat porridge? 何不食肉糜?" We can understand ancient emperors being out of touch. Information was limited. But the real question today is, in an age of information explosion, why don't they eat meat porridge? Keep repeating itself. So why does this keep happening? Why do these experts keep saying things that sound so disconnected from reality? The answer is more complicated than just, they're stupid or they don't care. 1. They live in a completely different reality. Many experts are not just academically different from ordinary people. They are structurally separated from them. Their income, resources, social circles, and daily life create a kind of information bubble. In their world, everyone owns property. Everyone has access to capital. Everyone has connections. So when they give advice, they are not lying. They are simply describing what works in their own world. 2. Survivorship bias. Most experts you see on TV are successful people. But success creates a dangerous illusion. They look at their own path and think, this worked for me, so it should work for everyone. What they don't see is the thousands who failed, the structural advantages they had, the timing that cannot be replicated. So their advice becomes, just do what I did, even when what they did is impossible for 99% of people. 3. Incentives to sound confident, not accurate. In media and public discourse, experts are rewarded for being clear, simple, and confident, not necessarily for being accurate or nuanced. Saying, income inequality is a complex structural issue involving policy, education, and capital distribution, doesn't get attention. But saying, just rent out your extra house, is simple, memorable, and viral. So over time, the system selects for experts who give oversimplified, extreme answers. 4. Distance creates moral judgment. When you are far away from a problem, it's easy to turn it into a moral issue. If you've never struggled to pay rent, you might believe people are poor because they made bad choices, not because wages are low. Housing is expensive. Opportunities are uneven. Distance turns structural problems into personal failures. 5. They grew up in a different China. This is especially important. Many of these experts built their careers during China's high-growth era, a time when housing was cheap, opportunities were expanding, upward mobility was real. But today's young people face slower growth, higher costs, fewer opportunities. Yet the advice hasn't changed. So what you get is old success stories applied to a new, completely different reality. And that's why these statements feel so absurd, because they are not just wrong, they are outdated. So what does the world of ordinary people actually look like? Like this, a few thousand yuan in monthly salary, mortgages of hundreds of thousands or even millions, possibly car loans, family expenses, medical pressure. And you ask these people to rent out idle houses? Many of them are still paying off their first home. What's even more ironic is that these experts often reach a conclusion. You are poor because you are not working hard enough. But they ignore one fundamental issue. Much of people's wealth is the result of structural resource allocation. Not everyone starts from the same line. They grew up during China's period of rapid economic growth. Yet they point fingers at our generation. Some people are born in city centers. Others are born into debt in rural areas. Some graduate with family support. Others must support their families immediately. When you stand on the mountaintop, you see the scenery, but it's easy to mistakenly believe anyone can climb up here as long as they try. And that's how we get these seemingly rational, but deeply out-of-touch suggestions. One comment from a netizen captured it perfectly. In the eyes of these experts, we don't even qualify as poor, because in their definition, to be poor you must at least have several houses you can rent out. So the problem is not that experts are wrong, but that they are living in a completely different world. Finally, let me ask you a question. If someone has never experienced the life of ordinary people, do they really have the right to guide them? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. I am Lino. I have to cover my face and use an AI voice because I often cannot help but express views that the authorities dislike. And I live in a country where even accessing YouTube is banned. If you want to understand the China you don't see, subscribe. See you in the next video.